Hey everyone, it's Deanna. Today, we're diving into a creepy crime story. Stick around for the chilling details. Clifford Millard Carden Jr. had a profound passion for two things above all else: his family and NASCAR. Among his cherished possessions were memorabilia related to his favorite racers, Dale Earnhardt and his son Dale Earnhardt Jr. Remarkably, a significant item from this collection would play a crucial role in eventually solving his murder. The following day, Cliff's lifeless body was discovered afloat in the Sequatchie River beneath a bridge, stumbled upon by a passerby. Investigation uncovered that he had sustained a single gunshot wound to the head from a 9mm pistol. Law enforcement also observed traces of blood and drag marks along the riverbank, suggesting that the body could have been pulled into the water from that location. Several hours later, a deliberately burned car was located in the woods, ultimately identified as belonging to Cliff. This finding was approximately 10 miles away from the initial sighting of his body. Cliff Carden, born in 1956, spent his formative years outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, with a natural affinity for automobiles from a young age, as reported by the Chattanooga Times Free Press. Reflecting on her father's passion, Sandora Carden shared with Snapped on Oxygen, "My father was a mechanic for 30-plus years of his life, and he loved cars." Despite the end of his initial marriage and divorce, Cliff chose to reside across the street to remain close to his two children and eventually entered into a second marriage in 1991. Cindy Carden, his second wife, shared with Snapped producers, "I fell in love with him because he was so kind and so gentle. He was just an awesome person." Adding to their blended family, Cindy brought two children of her own, and Cliff played an active role in their upbringing. Regrettably, Cliff faced significant health challenges at the age of 50. "My dad, he ran at 375 pounds. He needed to lose weight," remarked his son Chris Burgess. Cliff battled diabetes and heart disease, and these health issues began to strain his marriage. Ultimately, he and Cindy reached a point of separation due to the toll that these health struggles had taken on their relationship. Yet, around Christmas 2010, Cliff and Cindy initiated discussions about reconciling. "We were discussing me coming back home," he said. "I want us to work," shared Cindy with Snapped. However, by February, all attempts by Cindy to reach Cliff through phone calls proved unsuccessful. Growing concerned, she noticed their dog tied up outside his residence, heightening her worry. Cindy then reached out to Sandora, who revealed she hadn't heard from her father in days. Shortly thereafter, on February 3, 2011, a man collecting cans made a grim discovery: a deceased body floating in the Sequatchie River, as detailed in court documents. The scene was marked by evident bloodstains and drag marks on the adjacent riverbank. Notably, the deceased individual was devoid of his wallet, and there were no traces of a cell phone or any other items that could aid in identifying him. Earlier on the same day, the remnants of a 1996 Chevrolet Monte Carlo were discovered in the woods, approximately 10 miles away, as reported by the local news website, The Chattanooga. The car had been intentionally burned down to its frame using an accelerant. However, a sheriff's deputy came across a handicapped driver sign in close proximity, leading to the identification of the owner as Cliff Carden. Cindy received a phone call from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and they inquired about any identifying marks on Cliff. Recounting the moment, she shared with Snapped producers, "I said, 'Yeah, he's got tattoos on his arms,' and I described the tattoos. He goes, 'We found your husband.' The abrupt revelation prompted her to ask, 'Is he okay?' To which the response was that he was found deceased." Cindy described the impact, saying, "It was like my heart got broken, and then all of a sudden I got numb." After consulting with the medical examiner, detectives were informed of the cause of Cliff's death. Sequatchie County Sheriff Jody Lockhart conveyed to producers, "They let us know right off the bat he did have a single gunshot wound to the head." Upon learning of Cliff's death, his son Chris Burgess visited his home and observed a notable absence. Dale Earnhardt 1-18 scale porcelain car. It was one of Dad's prized possessions as far as his collection goes, and I noticed immediately that it was missing, Burgess shared with Snapped. This, however, was not the sole valuable item missing from the residence. Lockhart explained to producers, "You could tell the house was in disarray. There was stuff on the floor. Someone had gone through it like they were looking for something, even though there were no apparent signs of forced entry into the home." Lockhart observed a propane gas tank positioned against a heater. He expressed his perspective, stating, "In my opinion, that was set to try to burn the house down after someone had gone through and tried to steal what they needed out of the house." Detectives initiated the process of retracing Cliff's movements leading up to his murder. It was discovered that at the time of his death, he was wearing a shirt from Fuzzy's Bar in Sale Creek, Tennessee. Upon speaking to the bar's owner, detectives learned that Cliff was a regular patron and that on the day of his murder, he was at the bar drinking with an unidentified woman. An additional tip surfaced from a man who claimed that on the night of the murder, he provided a ride to someone already familiar to local law enforcement, Thomas Bryan Bettis, 35. According to the tipster, he picked up Bettis not far from where Cliff's car had been discovered. Bettis was accompanied by an unknown woman, and both were reportedly covered in mud. They requested to be taken to Walmart, where they spent over $300, and then to a Mountain Inn and Suites motel. Detectives focused their attention on the motel and verified that Bettis had indeed stayed there. The owner of the motel informed Chattanooga NBC affiliate WRCB. They paid in cash. They were no trouble. The hotel's security camera footage presented compelling evidence, strongly linking the suspects to the crime. Assistant District Attorney Stephen Strain noted, "They're seen in Mr. Carden's car, unmistakably carrying Dale Earnhardt memorabilia." This not only reinforced the connection to the victim, but also hinted at a potential motive tied to Cliff's prized collectibles. Following a search of the motel's trash, detectives discovered Walmart shopping bags and a pill bottle belonging to Cliff, stained with blood, as detailed in court documents. Assistant District Attorney Stephen Strain remarked, "At that point, we had enough evidence to bring charges." Before authorities could apprehend him, Bettis took the initiative to surrender himself. During the surrender, he maintained that he had no prior acquaintance with Cliff, but acknowledged a past connection with Cliff's girlfriend, Susan Baker, age 35. This raised additional questions about the nature of the relationship between Bettis, Baker, and the circumstances surrounding Cliff's murder, adding complexity to the unfolding investigation. Susan Lynette Baker's background revealed that she had grown up in Texas, demonstrating academic excellence and being a dedicated mother, as attested by her 2 children. However, a challenging turn of events unfolded as she started using opioids to manage chronic pain, stemming from pre-existing health conditions, eventually leading to addiction. This shift in her life trajectory underscored the complexities of her struggles and hinted at the challenges she faced. Baker's children shared that her substance use escalated after she entered into a relationship with Bettis. According to her daughter Autumn Baker, she always had a pill addiction. She was never abusing it too much until she met Bryan, and then it got worse. She stopped for a while, then she met him, and they started doing pills together. This insight highlighted the impact of the relationship on her struggles with substance abuse. According to Bettis, Baker and Cliff initially met at a local bar, and she subsequently started seeing Cliff discreetly. Sheriff Lockhart disclosed to producers, "We found out she was using Cliff for money and for pills, and she was actually in love with Bryan." Bettis asserted that the plan for the robbery and murder originated with Baker. In tapes from his interrogation obtained by Snapped, Bettis is heard saying, "She just called me and asked me if I wanted to go make some money." This revelation shed light on the motives and dynamics behind the tragic events. In a later development on the same day, Baker and Cliff picked up Bettis. While driving around, Baker attempted to rob Cliff. When Cliff resisted, Baker reportedly pulled out a pistol and shot him in the head, as outlined in court documents. This chilling account detailed the violent escalation of the situation. Following the disposal of Cliff's body, Baker and Bettis reportedly burglarized his home. They absconded with $1,006 in cash, racing collectibles, and prescription drugs, as reported by the Chattanooga. Upon returning to their hotel room, Bettis revealed during his interrogation that the couple engaged in sexual activity. He stated, "She said that it made her horny for her to do that," providing a disturbing insight into the aftermath of their criminal actions. Baker was later discovered at a friend's residence in Chattanooga. In her interview with detectives, footage of which was obtained by Snapped, she referred to Cliff as her boyfriend and mentioned, "He paid attention to me." Baker confirmed that Cliff occasionally provided her with oxycodone and Xanax. Initially attributing the shooting to Bettis, she eventually confessed to being the one who pulled the trigger. According to court documents, she admitted, "I snapped. I did. I snapped." This admission provided a crucial revelation about her role in the crime. Baker and Bettis faced arrest for the murder of Cliff Carden on February 8, 2011. As reported by the Chattanooga. Due to the circumstances of Cliff's death occurring during a robbery, they were charged with felony murder, along with an additional charge of destruction of personal property, as explained by prosecutor Strain. This legal action reflected the severity of the charges levied against them in connection to the tragic incident. After enduring several years of delays, Baker's trial finally commenced in late winter 2014. Following 2 hours of deliberation, jurors rendered a verdict, declaring her guilty of felony murder, especially aggravated robbery, and setting fire to personal property, as reported by the Chattanooga Times Free Press. The murder conviction alone sentenced her to serve 51 years in prison before becoming eligible for parole. This outcome underscored the gravity of the charges and the consequences of her actions. Opting not to risk a jury trial, Bettis entered a guilty plea in January 2015, admitting to facilitation to commit felony murder, 25 years, and facilitation to commit especially aggravated robbery, 10 years, as reported by DUA-RCB. The court sentenced him to serve 25 years for the murder charge and 10 years for the robbery charge. This decision reflected Bettis's acknowledgement of his involvement and an agreement to the terms of his sentencing. After being in custody since 2011, Bettis became eligible for parole in May 2015 and had a parole hearing scheduled for February 2020, according to the Tennessee Department of Correction. In contrast, Baker will not be eligible for parole until 2070 when she would be 94 years old. These details highlight the divergent paths of eligibility for parole based on their respective sentences. Thanks for joining today's crime journey. I'm Diana, your guide in the shadows. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's keep exploring mysteries together. Stay curious, stay alert, and see you next time. Take care.